Hi, welcome to Listen2Riches. Today, I will be interpreting a book for you titled, Think Again. Rethinking is not a new concept. In simple terms, it means learning to reflect and revisiting our thoughts. From a young age, we've been taught the importance of self-examination, a practice that helps us discover our shortcomings and continuously improve ourselves by breaking free from fixed thinking patterns. This seems like common knowledge, so why did the author feel compelled to write a whole book on the subject? The author of this book, Adam Grant, is a professor of organizational psychology at the Wharton School and has been awarded the title of the college's most popular lecturer for 7 consecutive years. Additionally, he has been recognized as one of the top 10 most influential management thinkers globally. Furthermore, he is an accomplished author with works such as Originals, with a cumulative sales record of over 2 million copies. Years of teaching and research have led Adam Grant to the realization that people may not be as adept at rethinking as they think, and they may also lack the tools to facilitate this process. For instance, some individuals spend over a decade in jobs they dislike just to meet their parents' expectations. They lock their life's navigation system onto a single target without ever pausing to reconsider what they truly like, what suits them, and what they want to gain from their work. Eventually, they find themselves heading in the seemingly correct direction but arriving at the wrong destination. Another example comes from research that suggests the more determined mountaineers are, the more likely they are to perish during their adventures. This is because they become so resolute in reaching the summit at any cost that they forget the best resilience is often found in changing course when necessary. To some extent, we are all conservators of conventional wisdom. Rather than grappling with new ideas, we prefer to cling to old ones. So, how can we break free from the shackles of our thinking to embrace rethinking? That's precisely what this book delves into. In this book, Think Again, Grant cites numerous cases to show us how people become trapped in their existing viewpoints, and more importantly, how they can embark on the journey of rethinking. In the following analysis, I will provide detailed psychological insights for each case mentioned to help you better understand the concept of rethinking. In the first part, we will start from our individual perspectives, exploring 3 typical cases alongside the author to uncover the obstacles hindering our ability to rethink and to find methods for doing so. In the second part, we will witness an extraordinary debate to see how this transformative power can be passed on to others, encouraging more individuals to embark on their own journeys of rethinking. Alright, let's officially dive into the first part. First, let's take a look at how in this rapidly changing era, a successful entrepreneur lost multiple opportunities and eventually got left behind because he failed to rethink. Mike Lazaridis was the inventor, founder, and CEO of BlackBerry smartphones. He was a highly thoughtful and innovative individual who dreamt of changing the wireless communication industry. And indeed he did. In 1999, BlackBerry emerged with its distinctive full keyboard, exclusive email push service, and a secure and reliable system, resembling a computer in many ways. These features allowed BlackBerry to dominate the global smartphone market for a long time. Whether it was corporate executives or Hollywood celebrities, everyone wanted to own a BlackBerry. By the summer of 2009, BlackBerry held nearly half of the smartphone market share in the United States. However, just 5 short years later, by 2014, BlackBerry's market share had plummeted to less than 1%. What happened in between? In 2007, Steve Jobs introduced the first iPhone, eliminating the physical keyboard and replacing it with a full touch screen. At the time, Lazaridis didn't see this as a threat. Faced with a full touch screen, he believed that not everyone could type on glass. Then, in 2008, the global market began transitioning from 2G to 3G, and the internet and mobile phones started to collide. Apple and Android both launched open app stores. However, Lazaridis still believed that people needed a device for sending and receiving work emails and making phone calls, not a phone filled with entertainment apps. In 2010, Lazarides even abandoned instant messaging services, missing out on the equivalent of China's WeChat, WhatsApp. In Lazarides's eyes, BlackBerry was always meant to be a productivity tool for typing emails with a keyboard, serving only a few million diehard fans. Little did he know that this was akin to giving up a market of billions. Why was Lazarides unwilling to rethink? According to the author, Grant, it was because BlackBerry represented a part of Lazarides's self-identity, and rethinking threatened his sense of self. Just like many firefighters who sacrificed themselves in the wilderness fires, they could have discarded their gear to gain more escape time, but few think of doing so. Why? Organizational psychologist Carl Weick explains that tools are a primary reason firefighters are engaged in their firefighting mission, so giving up their tools creates an identity crisis without the tools. Who are they? For Lazarides, it was similar. If BlackBerry was no longer a productivity tool for emailing, then was he still BlackBerry? If BlackBerry changed, then who was Mike Lazarides, the creator of it all? In fact, when we're engaged in tasks, we often instinctively want to reference and replicate past successful experiences, which is perfectly understandable. However, in a rapidly changing external environment, this approach can be highly perilous because any advantage or asset, if not periodically polished, can eventually turn into a liability. So, how should we rethink in the face of such rapid changes? The author believes that the key lies in separation, separating your past self from your present self and distinguishing your viewpoints from your identity. What does this mean? Firstly, separating your past self from your present self means daring to make mistakes and embracing the unknown. Many people fear making mistakes and adopt a mindset of preferring no results over potential problems. If we rethink the impact of making mistakes, we'll discover that making mistakes is, in essence, a path to growth. As Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater Associates, puts it, if you're not looking back at your past self and thinking, "Wow, I was really naive a year ago," then you probably haven't learned much in the past year. Therefore, we should cherish moments of making mistakes because they provide us with opportunities to correct our existing beliefs. This means that compared to our past selves, our misconceptions decrease as we continually iterate and upgrade ourselves. Secondly, separating your viewpoints from your identity means defining your identity based on your values rather than your opinions. The author argues that the best self-identity is rooted in shared values. You are who you are based on your values. You can be someone who seeks knowledge or someone who advocates fairness. Values don't easily change, so new viewpoints like rethinking the positioning of smartphone features, as long as they align with one's values, shouldn't pose a threat to self-identity. Conversely, you shouldn't consider yourself as the advocate for certain opinions, such as, "I'm against global warming," or "I prefer physical keyboards." These opinions are unreliable because they can change or become obsolete at any time. Tying unstable viewpoints to your self-worth makes your self-identity equally unstable and less conducive to rethinking. If the previous case served as a cautionary tale against rethinking, the following case is a classic textbook example of rethinking. Without further ado, let's delve into how a presidential candidate with slim chances of winning turned their imposter syndrome into an advantage, ultimately defeating their competitors. What can we learn from this? In psychology, there's a term known as imposter syndrome, which refers to a tendency towards self-doubt and self-denial. It's when someone, despite achieving numerous accomplishments, feels like an imposter and believes they don't deserve those achievements. In simple terms, it's a lack of self-confidence. Hala Thomasdottir is one such woman who grappled with imposter syndrome. Hala is a successful entrepreneur and a former presidential candidate in Iceland. On December 1, 2015, Hala received an unexpected phone call informing her that someone had started an online petition, urging her to run for the Icelandic presidency. Hala's initial reaction wasn't excitement but self-doubt. She wondered, "How could I become a president?" From an outsider's perspective, Hala was unquestionably qualified to enter the presidential race. Although she lacked political experience, she was an exceptional leader. She had helped establish a university and co-founded an investment company in 2007. When the 2008 financial crisis struck, wreaking havoc on Iceland, Halla's outstanding leadership and decision-making skills guided her company through the tough times. Even so, Halla hesitated for a long time. It was only after much prodding and persuasion from friends and family that she decided to run for office. She joined the race alongside over 20 other candidates, and as a relatively unknown candidate, Halla's journey into politics was destined to be challenging. Among her formidable competitors was Dov Oddsson, who couldn't have been more different from Halla. If Halla leaned towards excessive humility, Dov exuded excessive confidence. Dov believed he possessed ample experience and knowledge, more than enough to excel as a president. However, he had been recognized by Time magazine as one of the 25 people to blame for the global financial crisis. To compel his resignation as the central bank governor, the parliament had even passed an unconventional law requiring all heads of institutions to hold at least a master's degree in economics. Let's examine the election results. Although Halla didn't have a single cover story interview or a massive campaign budget, on election day, she secured over a quarter of the votes, ranking second. While Halla didn't become the president, she decisively defeated the overly confident Dov, who ended up in fourth place with less than 14% of the votes. This was a remarkable achievement that propelled Halla to fame. Arthur Grant once invited Halla to speak in his classroom, and Halla reflected that it was her imposter syndrome that served as her driving force. Through the campaign process, she gained a deeper understanding of self-doubt. While she used to view self-doubt as a weakening force, she now interpreted it differently. She saw doubt not as questioning her abilities but as a sign that she needed to improve her tools and methods. While other candidates were content with conventional media coverage such as television and newspapers, Halla's uncertainty about her tools prompted her to rethink her campaign strategy. She adopted methods few other candidates would use, shifting her focus to social media. She personally responded to messages on social media late into the night, and engaged in live interactions on Facebook. She even explored video apps to connect with a younger audience. These actions resonated strongly with voters and garnered her more support. We don't need to embrace imposter syndrome, continually self-doubting ourselves, but we can find key insights for rethinking within it, what to have confidence in, what to doubt, and how to strike a balance between overconfidence and excessive humility. The author suggests that the balance lies in confident humility. In essence, it means believing in your ability to achieve a goal in the future while maintaining a humble attitude, questioning whether your current methods are appropriate. Just as Halla did, overconfidence blinds us to our weaknesses, while humble confidence acts as a mirror, helping us identify our flaws, and confident humility acts as a corrective lens, enabling us to overcome those shortcomings. In the previous two cases, we explored the impact of rethinking on individuals. But what happens when it's a group of people? Let's delve into our final case, where a team riddled with conflict and struggles harnessed the power of rethinking to create an Oscar-winning animated film. In 1995, Pixar released its first feature-length animated film, Toy Story. Upon its release, it stormed the global box office, raking in $360 million, becoming the top-grossing film in the United States that year. However, the company's founders were eager for innovation and change. So, in the year 2000, they invited director Brad Bird to spearhead this transformation. Soon, Brad came up with an ambitious idea. He wanted to create a superhero film that could render explosions and tiny human hair details using next-generation animation technology. When he presented this vision, members of Pixar's technical team believed that it would take 10 years and $500 million to accomplish, making it seem unrealistic. However, Brad was determined and assembled a team of challengers, leading these unconventional thinkers to embark on the animation project. It's worth noting that the team members were not your typical animation experts. On the contrary, they were individuals perceived as less conforming by the rest of the company, those who were dissatisfied with not being able to unleash their capabilities. These individuals had a common characteristic: they dared to express themselves, question, and even nitpick. For example, they would engage in heated debates about details like how far back a character's hairline should recede. Nevertheless, their goal was unified: to take their work to the highest level. They brainstormed, sought alternative solutions for expensive technology, and explored creative ways to address challenging problems. In the end, Pixar's most complex film, The Incredibles, was born. It had a production cost of less than $100 million over 14 years and earned over $600 million at the box office, along with an Oscar for Best Animated Feature. In hindsight, Brad didn't seem to do anything extraordinary. He simply gathered a group of individuals who were willing to question, challenge, and doubt themselves. Typically, we aim for harmony among team members, striving to avoid conflict. However, Brad took a different approach, aiming to establish a network of interpersonal relationships filled with challenging personalities. It may appear counterproductive to team development, but it yielded excellent results. Why is that? Because the absence of conflict doesn't necessarily equate to harmony. Sometimes, it signifies indifference. Think about it. If every team member always complies with each other and responds to questions with, "Yes, that's fine, no objections," is that truly beneficial? The author argues that silence or failing to express opinions is actually a form of disrespect for the value of each person's viewpoint, a lack of respect for the ability to voice differing opinions. Teams with a single voice are not conducive to rethinking. On the contrary, arguing with someone, doubting their viewpoints, is not a sign of disrespect but rather a sign of respect. It indicates that you value the other person's perspective enough to engage in a debate. If the other person's opinion were unimportant to you, there would be no need to argue. One important point to note is that the author is not suggesting that all conflict is beneficial or that conflict always facilitates rethinking. The key lies in the type of conflict. Australian organizational psychologist Karen Edavane proposed two types of conflict: relationship conflict and task conflict. Relationship conflict involves friction and hostility, it's personal, whereas task conflict revolves around ideas and viewpoints. It's about the task, not the person. The Brad team, despite being comprised of challenging individuals and often experiencing friction and disagreements, primarily engaged in task conflict rather than relationship conflict. They didn't hesitate to put forth various viewpoints, but they refrained from personal attacks. After resolving some disagreements, they always managed to realign themselves in a unified direction and continue working until they encountered new issues to debate. However, managing individuals with a challenging nature isn't easy, and if one isn't careful, task conflict can turn into relationship conflict. How can one prevent this transformation? In Brad's case, we can see a glimpse of the answer. Generally, conflict tends to trigger creativity and the ability to rethink only when people feel accepted, supported, and trusted. This section has quite a bit of content, so let's summarize how to break free from the confines of thinking and achieve a mindset of rethinking. Firstly, don't abandon the idea of rethinking just to maintain your self-identity. Try to separate yourself from your past self and your viewpoints, and cultivate the habit of rethinking. Secondly, when you find yourself inclined towards self-doubt, view it as an opportunity for growth. You can be confident in your ability to learn while questioning the solutions you have for current issues, achieving a state of confident humility. Lastly, don't fear conflict and be open to challenges from critics. Although relationship conflicts can be uncomfortable, task conflicts often help you to rethink. Alright, after discussing how we can achieve rethinking ourselves, let's now explore how to encourage more people to rethink. This is particularly important and relevant to our daily lives. For instance, when we want our leaders to accept our proposals, persuade our parents not to purchase unnecessary health supplements, or caution our children against excessive computer use, it often feels like an uphill battle to convince them. In such situations, you need to find ways to make them rethink, to make others accept your viewpoint. A classic example of encouraging others to rethink is through debate. So, let's delve into the art of debate and explore effective methods to make others rethink, drawing insights from an exceptional debate that took place in February 2019 in San Francisco. In this debate, a top-notch British debater, Harish, faced off against an AI debater developed by IBM, named Debatra, on the topic of whether preschool education should receive government financial subsidies. Debatra argued in favor of subsidizing preschool education, while Harish argued against it. Before the debate began, the audience overwhelmingly supported Debatra's position, with a staggering 79% in favor of the AI. However, after the debate, Debatra's support dropped to 62%, while Harish's support increased from 13% to 30%, ultimately securing his victory in the debate. Harish managed to persuade some of the audience members to reconsider their stance. How did he do it? What can we learn from the art of debate? Let's dive into the details. Debatra was no stranger to debating with humans. Judging from his past performance, he held his own, even outperforming humans in certain aspects. His knowledge base consisted of 400 million articles, mostly from authoritative newspapers and magazines. Moreover, he could use a point detection engine to identify key arguments, define the scope of the issue, and weigh evidence. Debatra, representing the affirmative side, started the debate as expected. He cited a wealth of evidence from academic, social, and professional angles to illustrate the benefits of preschool education in the United States, such as how quality preschool education could help children overcome poverty-related disadvantages, among other points. Confronted with Debatra's robust arguments, Harish didn't rush to present his counter-arguments. Instead, he affirmed their common ground regarding the issue of poverty, reiterated the effectiveness of Debatra's cited research, and stated, "I believe our differences are not as significant as they seem." Harish's move was enlightening. Let's pause here for a moment and discuss this in detail. When we want to persuade someone, many of us tend to present our viewpoint directly. For instance, if you want to convince a friend to smoke less, you might say, "Why are you even smoking? It's bad for your health. Look at so-and-so, they ruined their lungs with smoking." You have valid points, right? However, your friend may not necessarily agree with you. They might think, "What do you know? You don't even understand why I smoke." So, to make others rethink, we ourselves must be willing to do the same, rethink. In essence, it's about learning to actively listen and empathize. This doesn't mean you agree with the other person's viewpoint, but it means you are attempting to understand their feelings and thoughts. The benefit of this approach is that it levels the playing field for both parties to engage in a conversation rather than a confrontation. Furthermore, by acknowledging areas of agreement with the other person and recognizing what you've learned from them, you not only demonstrate your own openness but also lower their defenses, prompting them to explore their own viewpoints more deeply. In this way, the goal of encouraging rethinking can be achieved. Moving on, Harish's next advantage came from his disadvantage. He couldn't amass vast amounts of information like the AI debater Debatra could. So, when faced with a long list of reasons provided by Debatra, Harish presented only two counterarguments. He believed that subsidizing preschool education wouldn't necessarily address the harm caused by poverty. First, government funds are limited, and many projects require assistance. Preschool education in the United States might not be the top priority for this funding. Second, even with subsidies, preschool education wouldn't be entirely free, and poor children would still struggle to afford high-quality preschool programs. So, how could this money effectively reduce poverty? Now, let's see what Harish did right in this round of competition. Have you ever felt that the more reasons you give during negotiations, the more likely the scales will tip in your favor? Well, the author tells us that, contrary to this belief, true negotiation experts often provide fewer reasons. The author conducted an experiment with colleagues to encourage alumni who had never donated to the school to contribute. They used 2 different persuasive reasons and tested their impact on the donation rate. One reason was that these funds would benefit the school's students, teachers, and staff, while the other reason was that donating was an opportunity for the donor to feel good. The results showed that when only one reason was given, 6.5% of the alumni eventually made a donation. However, when both reasons were presented, the donation rate dropped to below 3%. The effect of one reason was more than twice that of the 2 reasons combined. Why is this the case? The author explains that a single argument is like a conversation, while multiple arguments create an attack that triggers resistance. This situation is common in life as well. For example, a couple might start a discussion about a minor disagreement, initially discussing the issue calmly and rationally. However, if one of them begins to bring up past grievances and list a series of reasons why the other is wrong, the disagreement can quickly escalate into an argument where either party is willing to yield. Too many reasons not only make people feel attacked and hinder their ability to rethink but also make it easier for the other party to find flaws. Debater Harish pointed out that if you have too many points, you dilute the power of each point, and too many arguments may not be easy to explain. I don't know if the audience would accept every argument. I think the audience won't believe that they are all equally important. Moreover, the topics. In the final part of the audiobook, let's summarize the book briefly. In the first part, we used 3 cases to explore what hinders us from rethinking and how to gain the power of rethinking. First, in the case of BlackBerry founder Mike Lazaridis, we learned that people sometimes give up rethinking to maintain their self-identity. The key to change in this situation is separation, separating your current self from your past self, embracing the unknown, daring to make mistakes, which can help you break free from the shackles of your thinking, shed the burdens of the past, define your identity based on your values, not your viewpoints, and use a stable self to confront a rapidly changing era. Second, in the case of Iceland's former presidential candidate Hala Tómasdóttir, we understood that being overly confident doesn't necessarily make you better at rethinking. Sometimes, the imposter syndrome, which is self-doubt, can also be a source of motivation for rethinking. We need to find a balance, not being overly confident, or overly humble but confidently humble. To do this, we need to have confidence in our abilities while recognizing that our tools may not always work, and we need to continuously improve our tools. Lastly, in the case of Pixar director Brad Bird, we learned that, firstly, being critical and not fitting in isn't a drawback to human nature. On the contrary, it's a catalyst for rethinking. Compliance and silence are the real obstacles to rethinking. The absence of conflict doesn't equate to harmony. Sometimes, it signifies indifference. However, we also need to manage the intensity of conflicts and prevent task conflicts from escalating into relationship conflicts. In the second part, we used an exciting man versus machine debate to explain how to encourage more people to rethink. When trying to persuade others to accept our viewpoint, firstly, we shouldn't rush. Instead, we should listen to the other person's thoughts, seek common ground, and make them drop their defenses to rekindle their desire for exploration. Secondly, we shouldn't be greedy. We shouldn't lower the quality of each reason by presenting too many of them. We shouldn't dilute the power of each viewpoint. The other person won't resist if there aren't too many reasons. Thirdly, we shouldn't be one-dimensional. We shouldn't rely solely on statements instead of letting the other person think. Instead, we should ask questions to encourage independent thought. This is how we can ultimately gain the power of rethinking. In fact, rethinking isn't complicated. It's not a burden. Just as we get regular checkups to examine our physical health every year, we can apply the same principle to other important aspects of our lives, such as personal goals, work status, and thought processes. Of course, it can also be applied to larger domains like teams, businesses, and schools. Rethinking doesn't necessarily mean changing your mind and seeing immediate results. It's about taking the time to reflect on the current situation, avoiding rigid adherence to past beliefs, and being open to change. Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa once said, "The biggest difference between people lies in whether you have truly lived for over 10,000 days or simply lived one day, repeating it over 10,000 times." I believe this is the greatest value that rethinking brings us. It allows us to live more consciously, to know when to advance and when to retreat, when to abandon our previous positioning and embrace our new selves. Alright, that's all for today. Congratulations on completing another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the channel, like, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom and practice to achieve our financial goals and create a better future. Thank you, everyone. See you in the next episode.